Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about all of the key matchups that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will have versus the Saints for week 1. That's right, I'm recording and uploading this on a Wednesday, which means we are 3 to 4 days away before the start of the 2020 season with Tom Brady and the rest of the guys playing in Buccaneers uniforms. It's going to be absolutely amazing. I am stupidly excited. I'm sure you guys are very, very excited as well. So without further ado, let's start getting in to some of these matchups. The first matchup I want to talk about is this: Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and Jamel Dean versus Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Now let's start with Michael Thomas, and I think the best way to start on this is talk about how Michael Thomas did versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last season. So in 2 games, Michael Thomas had 23 targets, 19 receptions, 296 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Pretty darn good stats considering it was only 2 games worth of stats. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are definitely going to need to slow Michael Thomas down in this upcoming game. And, I definitely feel like Carlton Davis is going to be the first man up in terms of trying to deal with Michael Thomas. The reason for that is because, 1, he's our number 1 cornerback, hashtag Carlton Davis number 1 corner. That's what I've always wanted, but also because of what Carlton Davis brings as a cornerback to this team. His size, his length, his overall physicality, and his aggressiveness when playing the cornerback position, I feel is going to counter Michael Thomas a very decent amount. The last time the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played the New Orleans Saints was week 11 of last year. That was right before basically the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary went on that stretch of really pretty decent play. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary has come a long way since they have last played the Saints and Michael Thomas. So this is going to be a very good test for Carlton Davis to see how far he has come as a number 1 cornerback, and really, you couldn't have a better test for Carlton Davis than Michael Thomas, because Michael Thomas is one of the better receivers in the NFL. I definitely think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will probably be doubling up Michael Thomas a lot. I expect to see a lot of Carlton Davis on Michael Thomas, and I also expect to see a lot of Jamel Dean as well. Jamel Dean, he's, similar size to Carlton Davis, but he definitely has a little bit more speed in his game. That can also be very useful versus Michael Thomas. But shifting the focus now to the new free agent addition that the Saints made, it is Emmanuel Sanders, who is a very, very good wide receiver in the NFL. This was probably one of the better signings the Saints made in the entire offseason. Emmanuel Sanders, he still is a little bit older, 33, 34 years old, but he's still a very crisp route runner. He still has a pretty decent amount of speed to his game, and he's still got good hands. So, the Saints definitely picked up an incredibly solid number 2 wide receiver to pair up with Michael Thomas. And if I had to give a guess as to which cornerback the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be using a lot versus Emmanuel Sanders, I'm going to say Sean Murphy-Bunting. The reason for that is because of the versatility that Emmanuel Sanders has at the wide receiver position. He can play on the outside, he can play in the slot as well. Fun thing about Sean Murphy-Bunting, he can play on the outside, he can play in the slot as well. So I definitely would not be surprised if we see, for most of this game, just Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean versus Michael Thomas, and then Sean Murphy-Bunting versus Emmanuel Sanders, which is going to be very fun matchups in my opinion. So yeah, definitely going to be very interesting to see. It's a versatile wide receiver in Emmanuel Sanders versus a versatile cornerback in Sean Murphy-Bunting. You got 2 pretty big, strong-sized cornerbacks in Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean versus a very big, strong wide receiver in Michael Thomas. This one should be definitely a lot of fun, and this is one of those key matchups that can definitely dictate how this game goes for the Saints, because if they can't get the passing game going, they're going to have to fall back a little bit, maybe target some different options in the passing game, and then also focus more on the run game. So yeah, that's definitely the first matchup there. Talking about the next matchup, this one is Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul versus Teron Armstead and Ryan Ramczyk. So I have a couple of very interesting stats here. Shaq Barrett in 2019, you all remember this year, he had 19.5 sacks. It was absolutely amazing. But Shaq Barrett had 4 games last year where he did not register any type of sack number. He didn't even get a half a sack in 4 games. 2 out of those 4 games were versus the New Orleans Saints. So to say that Shaq Barrett doesn't have a great track record versus the Saints right now is a little bit of an understatement. Also, Jason Pierre-Paul has registered 0 sacks versus the Saints since he has joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul have both not gotten a sack on Drew Brees yet since they have both came to the team. Jason Pierre-Paul joining in 2018, Shaq Barrett joining in 2019. So they've definitely got to apply pressure on Drew Brees. And I know that that is an incredibly difficult thing to do, borderline impossible, considering how quick Drew Brees gets the ball out of his hands. He is very similar in that way to Tom Brady. They're both two of the best in the entire history of the NFL, but they've got to try. And they're going up against two of the better tackles in the NFL, in Teron Armstead and in Ryan Ramczyk. But to counter that, this is going to be the first time where Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett are going to be playing together fully healthy. JPP, I know he came back, I believe a little bit over halfway through last season, but you never know if somebody's fully healthy. Now that Jason Pierre-Paul has had, 8 or 9 games from last season and a full off season to get back into full health, him and Shaq Barrett is going to be absolutely incredible. So they need to apply a little bit of pressure on Drew Brees. They need to help out in setting the edge for the run game as well, making sure that no runs are bounced to the outside, and we just need to overall see production from both those pass rushers. And I'm pretty confident that now that they are fully healthy and working together after a full off season together and things like that, we definitely can see some very good production from these two guys in this upcoming game. The next matchup I want to talk about is Alvin Kamara and Jared Cook versus Lavonte David and Devin White. And I'm going to go back again and look at these guys' stats versus the Bucs in 2019. So Alvin Kamara in 2 games in 2019 versus the Buccaneers, 29 attempts, 137 yards. That accounts for 4.7 yards per carry, 17 targets, 16 receptions, and 89 yards. 0 touchdowns, both in running and in receiving. In the case of Jared Cook, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 74 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So overall, not bad stats from both of these players. Alvin Kamara definitely has the more impressive stat line when compared to Jared Cook. Looking at Devin White and Lavonte David's stats versus the Saints in 2019, Devin White only played in 1 game versus the Saints last year as he was dealing with knee injuries as well as illness injuries as well. But 13 tackles in 1 game for Devin White. That's absolutely amazing. He definitely had a nose for the ball in that game. And then in the case of Lavonte David, in 2 games, 11 total tackles and 1 quarterback hit. So these guys, Devin White and Lavonte David, are going to have the main job of containing these two guys, Jared Cook and Alvin Kamara. Now, we've remembered in years past with Tampa Bay Buccaneers defenses, there are times when they can't stop tight ends. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore, especially with Lavonte David and Devin White running around there. They're both very, very good in coverage. They both have a ton of speed to their game, especially Devin White. He's an absolute monster of a linebacker in terms of his athleticism. So overall, I think that they match up very well to both Jared Cook and Alvin Kamara. I know that the stats paint like a pretty impressive picture overall, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had the #1 run defense last year, and a big part of that was Lavonte David and Devin White. And I think that there is no reason as to why that #1 run defense can continue to have success in this upcoming season. I think that Devin White and Lavonte David are possibly a top 3, maybe even one of the top 2 linebacker duo in the entire NFL right now, and I think it's going to show right away for this team versus week 1 versus the Saints. So yeah, going to be very interesting to see how these guys perform. You've got to contain that speed of Alvin Kamara. You've got to contain that receiving threat of Alvin Kamara as well. And then Jared Cook is just a big, physical, very receiving threat type of tight end. So there's a lot to deal with there, but if there were 2 guys on this defense that I could trust with that responsibility, it's Devin White and Lavonte David. Talking about the 4th matchup here to keep an eye on, this one's going to be very, very important. It is going to be Cameron Jordan and Marcus Davenport of the New Orleans Saints versus Tristan Wirfs and Donovan Smith. Now, I want to talk about both these guys' stats versus the Bucs in 2019. Cam Jordan, 2.5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits in 2 games versus the Bucs last year. Marcus Davenport, 2 sacks and 4 quarterback hits in 2 games versus the Bucs last year. But I will like to point out that 2 of those sacks and 3 of those quarterback hits came in 1 game versus the Bucs for Marcus Davenport. So, yeah, gonna be really interesting to see here. Much like I was talking about with Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean kind of, having this incredible test right away to see how far they've come. Tristan Wirfs is going up against Cameron Jordan to start off his entire NFL career. Now, I will say, Tristan Wirfs has had a phenomenal amount of training partners going up against the likes of Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett. Those are two really good training partners, especially the fact that Jason Pierre-Paul is a double-digit sack artist for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2018. He had 8.5 sacks for the Bucs in 2019. Shaq Barrett had 19.5 sacks in 2019. He was the NFL sack leader. So you really couldn't ask for two better guys to be going up against before you play Cameron Jordan in your rookie year. So this is definitely going to be trial by fire for Tristan Wirfs. We will definitely have to see how he does. Donovan Smith going up against Marcus Davenport. This has been a matchup that's happened a couple of times now. It used to be Alex Okafor versus Donovan Smith, and I remember Cameron Jordan was always trash-talking Donovan Smith on social media and things like that. According to the reports right now, Donovan Smith has made a very large amount of progress in being a more consistent left tackle for this team, which is awesome. That's what we've been waiting to see for years now, so hopefully he can translate that consistency from the practice field to the regular season, and we will be able to see a new and improved Donovan Smith now that he's got a lot of help on the offensive side of the football. And one thing I do want to say is, much like how I talked about Drew Brees getting the ball quickly out of his hands, Tom Brady does the same exact thing, which is going to make the jobs of Tristan Wirfs and Donovan Smith way easier because he's going to get that ball out much quicker. He's going to it's going to take less time of him holding the ball, which means that Donovan Smith and Tristan Wirfs won't have to block as long as they need to, which is just absolutely phenomenal. So, yeah, this should be interesting. You can't afford to get Tom Brady hit. You just can't. That doesn't need to happen. We need to keep that man safe at all costs. So there's a lot of pressure on Donovan Smith and on Tristan Wirfs, and I would definitely say more so on Tristan Wirfs, considering he is going up against Cam Jordan, who had 15.5 sacks last year. That is definitely trial by fire, but I definitely believe in the rookie. I think he's going to do a good job, and hopefully we can see Donovan Smith finally translate that consistency from the practice field to the regular season. So there you have that. The second to last matchup I want to talk about is going to be O.J. Howard and Rob Gronkowski versus Demario Davis and Alex Anzalone? Alex Anzalone. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure. But O.J. Howard versus the Saints in 2019 was not good. 3 targets, 1 reception, 10 yards. Not very good, considering that Demario Davis is one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL, and Alex Anzalone definitely can be a pretty decent middle linebacker if he can stay healthy. You would think that O.J. Howard may continue to struggle. Enter Rob Gronkowski, who is going to be phenomenal in terms of drawing attention away and just overall making more opportunities for O.J. Howard. That isn't to say that Rob Gronkowski is going to get so much attention that he can't do anything. We've seen Rob Gronkowski. You can give him all the attention in the world, and he's still going to go out there and have a 70-yard game and maybe a couple of touchdowns. So overall, this could be one of the more important matchups in this game, considering how both these tight ends do. I think they're going to do great. I think that O.J. Howard and Rob Gronkowski complement each other beautifully, especially in 2 tight end sets. It should work absolute wonders for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. Tom Brady loves targeting tight ends in the passing game. He's got 2 of the best tight ends in the NFL. Now, I appreciate Demario Davis, very good coverage linebacker, but you're going up against 2 of the best tight ends in the NFL. I'm relatively confident about this matchup in particular, and I think that this one could be a sneakily good matchup that could determine very large chunks of this game, depending on how well O.J. Howard and Rob Gronkowski do in the passing game. Also, considering the fact that they're going to be blocking a lot as well for the run game for Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, and LaShawn McCoy, O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski, they have a lot of responsibility as well. Finally, guys, the last matchup that I'm going to talk about is the most fun. It's Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. 2 Hall of Famers, 2 of the best quarterbacks in the history of the entire NFL are going to be going head-to-head, and Tom Brady's in a Buccaneers uniform. That's just awesome. All of these matchups that I talked about here, the pass rushing, the offensive line, things along those lines, it really can just be all boiled down to Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. And, all those matchups are incredibly important, but I am just so excited to watch these two legends duel each other. It's going to be so cool, and it's going to happen again this year. It gets to happen twice. We get to watch Tom Brady versus Drew Brees twice. I think that we've obviously seen something that I never thought that I would see. I'm sure a lot of you guys never thought that you would see Tom Brady in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform versus Drew Brees either, but that's what we're getting. 2020's been a weird year, and I'm so excited. I'm just so excited. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be freaking amazing to see Tom Brady out there in a Buccaneers uniform, Hall of Fame quarterback, best quarterback of all time, versus Drew Brees, another Hall of Famer, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. This is playoff football to start off the year, and I love it 100%. So, yeah, guys, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about these matchups down in the comments section below. How do you think the Buccaneers are going to do versus the New Orleans Saints, specifically the players that I highlighted? Guys, at the end of the day, the New Orleans Saints are a very good team. Like, that's just how it is. If you don't believe that, I don't know what to tell you. The New Orleans Saints have a lot of talent. They have an incredibly deep roster and a lot of good starters. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have done everything to counter that, and they have countered that beautifully, in my opinion. Every single matchup that I have highlighted is just going to be awesome. You're getting some of the best pass rushers in the NFL with the Bucs and the Saints versus some of the best offensive tackles in the NFL with the New Orleans Saints, and then some guys who have a lot to prove with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that being Tristan Wirfs and Donovan Smith. You've got some amazing young cornerbacks for the Bucs versus Emmanuel Sanders, a very strong veteran wide receiver, and Michael Thomas, one of the better, younger wide receivers in the NFL. It's just going to be a lot of fun. And I know I did miss on a lot of matchups. Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore, things like that. If there's any other matchups that you guys want to highlight, put them down in the comments section below. But I feel these matchups are the ones that very much will decide this game. So, yeah, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.